UAP files, and within days, literally billions of people had viewed them. Now, some of the footage is genuinely interesting, and some of it's more the same, but buried inside all of it is something that's really blowing people's minds right now. And top officials are saying there are multiple types of non-human intelligence. Not only that they've been here for a very long time, and that the government has known about it for decades. Across many cultures, across continents, and even across different centuries, the descriptions are always remarkably similar. And now, for the first time, that description is showing up in declassified government documents for the world to see. And the files released through the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters, aka the Pursue program, just happened on May 8th of 2026.
More than 160 files and hundreds of incidents are now online, dating all the way back to the 1940s. The Pentagon says the American people can now access these videos and photos instantly with no clearance required.
One of the items in there was an old FBI internal memo from 1966 describing various eyewitness accounts of encounters with small humanoid figures. They were described as approximately 3.5 to 4 feet tall with enormous eyes and a small frame. Now you have to remember that up to this point, there are alien depictions in pop culture, in the movies and on TV, but they usually look like robots or had spacesuits on. They were humanoid, but that's because actors had to play them. In other words, these accounts from different places and different people didn't have a frame of reference. Very few had seen this type of thing before, if at all, and yet they were all describing the same thing. And Dr. Eric Davis, a physicist who worked on classified Pentagon projects and testified to Congress in a secured facility, named the Greys first when he publicly listed the 4 recovered non-human species. He described them as the most commonly encountered type across crash retrieval programs and the most extensively documented in classified files.
They're typically the multiple species people are familiar with, the Greys and Mordays. The Greys I'm familiar with from investigating the crash at Colonia, which is misnamed the crash of Roswell. Those were Greys, those were both the tall.
And if they are the most popular, then that would explain why this image of the classic alien has seeped into our culture the way it has. The modern era of Grey encounters arguably begins on the night of September 19th of 1961 when Betty and Barney Hill were driving home through rural New Hampshire and reported being stopped on the road, taken aboard a craft, and subjected to what they described as a medical examination. And Betty later described the beings as having large, wraparound eyes, grayish skin, and communicating without moving their mouths. Under hypnosis, both gave accounts that matched each other without having been in the same room. And their story became the template for almost every abduction account that followed after that. And here's what makes the Grey phenomenon impossible to simply dismiss. The accounts don't just come from rural Americans on dark highways. They come from military pilots and astronauts, from people who had everything to lose and nothing to gain by coming forward. Former NASA astronaut Gordon Cooper, a man who flew in space, stated before his death that he personally witnessed a Grey-type craft land at Edwards Air Force Base and that a film crew documented it before the footage was immediately confiscated by the government. And Dr. Paul Puthoff, the 89-year-old Stanford-trained quantum physicist who ran classified CIA programs for decades, said on the Diary of a CEO podcast just weeks ago that people involved in crash retrievals have described at least 4 distinct types of non-human species, and the Greys are the ones that keep coming up first, every single time. They are small, they are consistent, and they show up in ancient cave paintings and in declassified FBI memos, and in the testimony of people who swore oaths to their government before they ever spoke a word about what they saw. And the question isn't really whether the Greys exist anymore. The question is what they want. And nobody, not the Pentagon, not the CIA, and not the people who spent their careers studying this, has given us a straight answer on that one just yet. Number 4. The Nordics. If the Greys are the image of the alien that your brain defaults to, the Nordics are the ones that make you question that if aliens are real, where do they come from and are we somehow a part of it all? Because the Nordics, they don't look like aliens. They look just like us. Described as 6 to 7 feet tall with long blonde hair and blue or violet eyes described by witnesses as almost impossibly vivid. Eyes that don't quite exist in any human being you've ever met, but not too far off. They have fair skin and perfect physical proportions, described by virtually everyone who claims to have encountered them as radiating a quality of calm and intelligence that feels ancient in a way that's hard to put into words. In testimony to members of Congress at the UAP Disclosure Fund conference that happened in the spring of last year, described the Nordics as a bit larger than your average human and resembling Northern Europeans in their physical appearance.
The Nordics are typically human-sized, probably, I try 5-6 feet tall.
That description coming from a Pentagon physicist in front of elected members of Congress is not nothing. Now, that's an extraordinary statement that was delivered in an extraordinarily matter-of-fact way. Now, the modern record of Nordic encounters really starts in the 1950s, a period when the contactee movement produced dozens of individuals coming forward claiming to have met beings of exactly this description. George Adamski claimed contact with a Nordic being he called Orthin in the California desert in November of 1952. Howard Menger claimed years of interaction with Nordic beings who gave him knowledge about advanced technology and spiritual evolution. And these early accounts, as you can imagine, were mostly dismissed as fantasy, and you might even be thinking the same thing at this very moment. But here's what makes the Nordic phenomenon harder to wave away as the decades go on. The accounts, well, they never stop. And they started coming from people who weren't seeking attention. Military personnel, government employees, people in multiple countries who had never heard of George Adamski and had no connection to the contactee movement of the 1950s. The consistent detail across all these accounts, across all those decades and all those countries, is the behavior. The Nordics are described as benevolent and communicative, and they seem genuinely interested in humanity's development and deeply concerned about where we are all headed. Multiple witnesses describe being given information about ecological collapse, the real danger of nuclear weapons in human hands, and about the general direction human civilization is moving. And it's not exactly going the way it should be. A recurring theme across unconnected accounts is the sense that the Nordics are watching us, similar to the way a parent watches a child making a bad mistake, with knowledge of the outcome but a deep reluctance to interfere directly because the only way for us to learn is by our mistakes. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who leads the House UAP task force and has been briefed and secured classified facilities on the contents of the government's UAP programs, went on the Joe Rogan podcast in 2025 and said she has seen photo documentation of aircraft that she believes were not made by mankind. And she described the operators of these crafts as interdimensional beings capable of moving outside of time and space. Now, Anna didn't say these beings were the Nordics, but she said there are books that were removed from the Bible that explain exactly what these things are, and it sounds like the Nordics.
And we can go into some of the books that were removed from what we know as the modern day Bible, but I read through the Book of Enoch multiple times. There has to have been, and there's admissions that there was other creations that God made, but that we were the most prized creation.
The Book of Enoch is a real text, confirmed by archaeological discovery and written over 2,000 years ago, quoted directly inside the New Testament by Apostle Jude, and still considered sacred scripture by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church today. Now, it describes beings called the Watchers, non-human intelligences who descended from the heavens, mated with humanity, and possessed knowledge no civilization of that era should have had, and produced giant offspring called the Nephilim. And And the Book of Enoch was widely read in Israel during the time of Christ, before being quietly excluded from the Western Bible in the 4th century. Now, are the Nordics the Watchers, our angels, our gods? Well, we don't know. But people have been describing something that looks exactly like them for over 2,000 years. And whatever they are, it's possible they're here right now, and because they look so much like us, well, we wouldn't even know it. If the new batch of disclosure videos has shown us anything, it's that these UAPs come in all shapes and sizes. Saucers, orbs, cigar shapes, chandelier-like structures that just hang in the sky. And when you consider that we're talking about multiple distinct non-human species, beings that potentially come from completely different places and dimensions, it actually makes perfect sense that they wouldn't all be traveling in the same vehicle. Different civilizations, different technology, so different crafts. Of the 4 non-human intelligence types named by Pentagon insiders and discussed at the highest levels of government, the insectoids are the ones that receive the least public attention. They rarely make the headlines. They don't show up in the movies the way the Greys do, and most people who follow this topic casually have never even heard the term. But among researchers who have spent decades cross-referencing witness accounts, and among the people who claim to have actually encountered them, the insectoids generate a level of visceral, instinctive fear that none of the other 3 types come close to matching. And when you hear what witnesses consistently describe, well, you'll understand exactly why. The descriptions are similar enough across unconnected witness accounts that it's difficult to just dismiss them. But at the same time, giant insect-looking aliens is crazy if you haven't seen one for yourself, so you can decide how you feel about it. Now, they are generally said to stand between 6 and 8 feet tall, 2 arms, 2 legs, but elongated limbs. They have a triangular or mantis-like head with large compound eyes, just like you'd see on a dragonfly. Thin articulated fingers, and they also never move fast. They're slow and methodical, just like something that has never once needed to rush because it has never once been in any danger. So that's scary enough, but what's really frightening is that these things seem to be at the top of the food chain, and I'm talking across all the species we're discussing today. Across hundreds of documented abduction and contact cases, cases investigated by researchers, psychologists, and in some instances, military personnel, well, witnesses don't just describe one type of being. Often, they describe multiple types in the same room at the same time. For example, a Grey performing a procedure and an insectoid standing in the corner watching it happen. Now, they are apparently working together and with what appears to be a clear chain of command. Now, if true, that's a wild thing to ponder because then it doesn't just mean non-human intelligence exists, it means there is an organized multi-species operation that has been running on this planet for God knows how long, and somebody or something is in charge of it, and that something appears to be the insectoid. In encounter after encounter, the pattern is the same. The Greys move around the room, and they perform procedures and operate equipment. The insectoid doesn't do any of that. It just stands back and directs. Though insectoids don't speak and don't gesture to do so. Now, witnesses describe information arriving directly into their consciousness, fully formed thoughts that aren't theirs landing in their mind. And unlike the Greys, who witnesses generally describe as clinical and detached, the insectoid is described as something else entirely. Intentional, focused, and genuinely frightening in a way that goes beyond the physical. Multiple people have described a feeling of profound dread in the presence of an insectoid that they struggle to explain. It's not fear of being harmed exactly, but something deeper. The feeling of being seen completely and understood completely by something ancient and utterly indifferent to your comfort. Whatever the insectoids are and wherever they come from, they are not the ones doing the work. No, they're the ones giving the orders. The government files released through Pursue have not yet produced a document that specifically names or describes the insectoid type, but more releases are in the pipeline, and they are said to contain material that will be significantly more specific about the nature of the beings encountered by military personnel. Now, whether that includes the insectoid type, we'll all just have to wait to find out. Number 2, the reptilians. Before you write this one off, hear me out, because the reptilian type is the one most associated with fringe internet theories and late-night radio shows, the kind of content that makes serious researchers cringe. It's been mocked, satirized, and turned into memes, but that mockery, according to several former intelligence officials, was entirely deliberate. Dr. Hal Padoff has spoken about a CIA disinformation campaign that successfully stigmatized UFO research for decades, making serious inquiry into these subjects career-ending and socially humiliating. I almost didn't make this video, even though I find the subject fascinating and interesting, because I don't know if a lot of y'all like it. Though, if you've made it this far, then we're on the same page. But getting back to the disinformation, it works. I mean, if you wanted to ensure that a specific category of information never receives serious public attention, but you would do exactly what was done to the reptilian topic. You would make it a joke, and you would attach it to the least credible voices and let the internet bury it under layers of conspiracy. And then, people with the actual security clearances would talk about it in front of Congress, and nobody would cover it or care.
Basically the most effective disinformation campaign in the history of the U.S. government, because it got into our culture. Some movies were funded that made aliens seem silly and the idea of life from elsewhere seem ridiculous, and that got compounded over the years.
Dr. Eric Davis named reptilians explicitly in his congressional testimony, describing them as broadly humanoid, approximately human-sized, with scales in place of skin, and vertical slit pupils, and an upright bipedal stance. So, 2 arms, 2 legs, just not human. Now, that description, delivered in front of elected members of Congress, is not a conspiracy theory, it's on the record. But the physical description is actually the least disturbing thing about them. Because unlike the Greys, who witnesses describe as clinical and detached, and unlike the Nordics, who are consistently described as benevolent, the reptilians carry a very different energy in virtually every account. They're dominant, cold, and predatory. Witnesses who claim encounters with reptilian beings don't describe feeling observed or studied. They describe feeling controlled, assessed, like prey that has been determined to be of use. And then, of course, there's the shape-shifting. Across a significant number of accounts, a consistent and deeply unsettling ability gets described, and the reptilians can apparently alter their appearance. They're not transformed dramatically like something out of a movie, but shift. Witnesses describe moments where the human-looking face in front of them slips, just for a second, and something else looks back. An anonymous Arizona businessman described walking into his boss's office unannounced, and his boss was standing by the window with his back to him, and when he turned around, his face, just for a moment, wasn't human. Then it was again. That man left after that, and he never came back. According to accounts compiled by researchers, including Linda Howe, an investigative journalist who had spent decades interviewing government insiders, reptilians don't just appear in remote locations or during abductions, but they appear in positions of power, in boardrooms and in the government. And the theory that has circulated is that reptilians have been operating among human populations for a very long time, so not visiting, but living here undetected. A former security officer named Thomas Castillo, who claimed to have worked at a classified underground facility in Dulce, New Mexico, described in detail a reptilian caste system, a worker class, a warrior class, and an elite class with albino or white scales and powerful telepathic abilities who acted as overseers, not just of other reptilians, but of the Greys operating alongside them. In his account, the reptilians weren't just guests at that facility, they were co-governors of it. So where the Nordics guide and the Greys study, the reptilians control. And if some of them have been living among us this whole time, passing as human, the question isn't whether they're here. The question is, how many? Number 1, the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. Okay, so here's the theory that makes all the other 4 make sense. And it's the one that the most credentialed voices in this entire conversation, including myself, keep arriving at independently no matter where they started. The extraterrestrial hypothesis says these beings are coming from another planet, that they travel across space and time to visit, then they just leave. It's a sort of tidy explanation that fits inside a framework that we can understand. And if the universe is so big and infinite, then it makes sense that other beings are out there. And all these UAPs and UFOs in the skies are them just checking us out. And sometimes we see them, but then they go back into space, and so we never really get to find out who they are. But dig a little deeper and ask a few questions, and that doesn't really make a ton of sense. I mean, why visit us at all? And if you do visit us, well, why do you always leave, staying just hidden enough to make us wonder if you're real? I mean, really, what would be the point of all that? If they are coming from light years away, then they are certainly more intelligent than us, so maybe they look at us like an unevolved species that isn't worth their time. But if that's the case, then why so secretive? Why stay so hidden, and why would you keep coming back? Now, the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis flips this whole idea on its head and says that these aren't creatures from another galaxy visiting. Now, they've been here the whole time. At least, sort of. Let me explain. Jacques Vallée is a French-born computer scientist and astronomer who spent years researching and believing in the extraterrestrial hypothesis before the weight of the evidence pushed him somewhere else entirely. In his own words, he concluded that the UFO phenomenon represents evidence for other dimensions beyond space-time. That UAPs may not come from ordinary space, but from a multiverse that is all around us. And that we have stubbornly refused to consider that disturbing reality despite centuries of evidence pointing directly at it.
So if we want to even disclose something as simple as saying, yes, we acknowledge the phenomenon, once you do that, you have to answer 100 other questions.
John Keel, the American journalist who coined the term ultraterrestrials in 1970, he went further. He argued that these beings are composed of energy, that they inhabit a spectrum of existence that human instruments cannot detect, that they have been with us since the beginning of recorded history, manifesting as whatever the cultural framework of that era can process. So, gods in ancient civilizations, angels and demons in medieval times, and spacecraft in the 20th century. And the phenomenon doesn't change, you see, our viewpoint does. And if interdimensional sounds a little too far-fetched, we'll consider this. There's a growing body of evidence suggesting they might not be coming from another dimension at all. They might be right here, in this dimension, on this planet, just in the parts of it we've never been able to reach. Now, we have explored less than 5% of the ocean floor, and the ocean covers 71% of the surface of this planet. The vast majority of it remains completely unknown to us. In deep ocean trenches, underwater mountain ranges, and cave systems that extend for hundreds of miles, all of it beyond the reach of any technology we currently have. If something wanted to exist on this planet undetected for thousands of years, well, the ocean is a perfect spot. The term USO, unidentified submerged object, is something you might not be familiar with, but you will be soon enough. Because unlike a lot of things in this conversation, the evidence for them is verified and on record. In July of 2019, the USS Omaha recorded a UAP off the coast of San Diego that buzzed a Navy fleet and then disappeared into the ocean without a trace. No splash, no debris, no loss of speed.
What was splashed? Splashed. Mark bearing and range.
The Pentagon verified that footage. A retired Navy Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, a man with 4 decades of naval service, wrote in a 2024 report that unidentified objects with unexplainable characteristics are entering U.S. water space, and the Department of Defense is not raising a giant red flag, which, he said, is a sign the government is not sharing everything it knows. Nearly 400 USO sightings have been reported off the coast of California alone, and tens of thousands globally. Objects moving at hundreds of miles per hour underwater, making sharp turns, transitioning seamlessly between ocean and atmosphere. So, interdimensional, suboceanic, ancient, whatever frame you want to put around it, the conclusion keeps coming back to the same thing. Now, they didn't come from somewhere else. They were already here and always have been. And now.
So, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that they've already been here? You know, the president and all of them, they know? Or do they have a secret base where they're hiding them at? What's going on? Do we walk around with them every day? What's going on? We need to find out. You know what I'm saying? It's allegedly only like 60% of the world, you know what I'm saying, is human. So what about the other 40%? You know what I'm saying? What are they? Insectoids? Nordics? What are they? You know what I'm saying? They've been here all the time. They've been up in the ocean. We don't know about this ocean yet. We know what I'm saying? They haven't explored the whole deep in the ocean, man. It's a lot of the ocean that hasn't been explored. We don't know what's out there. Let's get on with this.
Much of what you're about to see has never been public before. The Pentagon now releasing another batch of its so-called UFO files after they were declassified by President Trump. And this morning, we got an exclusive first look. This morning, GMA exclusive, more than 50 videos and other documents detailing strange objects in the sky, many of which the military can't explain, released in the second batch of Pentagon's so-called UFO files. Inside, never-before-seen video like this from 2024, the Coast Guard picking up this object as it flew near a plane over the southeastern U.S., and this taken by the U.S. military over Syria in 2021, following an unidentified object before it suddenly speeds off. The service member who submitted the video labeling it instant acceleration. Others seen flying in apparent formation. All part of over 200 files released so far detailing what the military officially calls unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, better known as UFOs, long an object.
Watch the object in the sky. This was captured over Miami on August 14th. And what happens next has the witness seriously convinced something is wrong.
What the? What the Say, Prince. That looked crazy. Is that a plane? What is that? No, seriously, what is that?
As the sighting continues, she becomes increasingly frightened and even questions whether they're being attacked. Look closely at the objects.
Is that a shooting star? No. I'm gonna literally be... No way. No freaking way. No, literally there's like glitter around it. I'm not even kidding you. There's like glitter around it. Is it multiple? Are we being attacked?
There appear to be multiple illuminated objects flying through the sky, but based off this footage, it's hard to tell exactly what they are.
What is that? I'm kind of freaking out. I'm kind of freaking out. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh god. Oh Lord God. Oh Lord God.
UFO, aircraft, drones, flares, meteors. Watch it again and tell me what you think.
What is that? No, seriously, what is that? Is that a shooting star? No. I'm gonna literally be... No way. No freaking way. No, literally there's like glitter around it. I'm not even kidding you. There's like glitter around it. Is it multiple? Are we being attacked? What is that? I'm kind of freaking out. I'm kind of freaking out. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh god. Oh Lord God. Oh Lord God.
Guys, they have officially started releasing the UFO files. The Pentagon, the FBI, NASA, and the State Department just dropped 162 classified documents, and some of them are insane. Some of these files are photos and audio from the Apollo 12 and the Apollo 17 missions taken from the moon while astronauts were standing on it. They show lights in the sky that the crew could not explain, and one of them said that it looked like the 4th of July up there. Their best explanation for what was going on is that it was ice or paint from the rocket, but they literally said that that was a wild guess. Dude, these are files from the Apollo missions. They saw lights in the sky while they were walking on the moon. Holy shit. 108 of the files actually still have redactions, but the Pentagon basically just said to make up your own minds. Yeah. But this right here is just the first batch, and trust me, I'm gonna have more updates soon. And people are taking this so seriously right now that on Kalshi right now, millions of dollars are betting on whether the fact the government is going to confirm that aliens exist before 2027. I am going to be here every single time that new files drop, and trust me, there is going to be more coming soon, so make sure you add me now so you don't miss it.
The writing so small we barely can see that. me see, release. Let me stop it. Released, say 05 announcement. The Department of War just released the 5th franchise of records under pursue. The first franchise was released on May 8, 2026. Scroll down and view the 5th franchise. What is that? Trench. That's Trench. Okay. Released on August 7, 2026. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead with it. I probably mispronounced some words. They got it sitting up there so long. I guess they kept it up there so we could read it all, I guess. Let's keep on going. But this is supposed to be files that's supposed to be released by the Pentagon, y'all. Unsolved UFO report.
And then multiple people reported seeing this strange cloud above California that they believe might have been a cloaked UFO.
Bro, mira esta madre cómo se mira, güey. Holy crap.
What is that?
It's so perfect.
Dang, that's a cloud?
It's a UFO, bro. It looks like a UFO, dude. It is, huh?
And what makes this video so strange is that multiple people saw this.
Mira la nube aquella, parece un platillo volador. En la madre, los aliens ya llegaron.
I'm talking about there's hundreds of uploads of this particular cloud. That's how weird it looked to people who saw it.
Man, you can't tell me that's not one of them flying saucers they call them.
What is that? What the f is that? Zoom in, zoom in. What?
Let me tell y'all something. The only cloud in the sky right now. Y'all see it, right? These the rest of the clouds right here, the normal ones. These are the normal ones. And then you come back over here, and this just sitting right here.
Why is a cloud in the sky freaking people out? You might say, well, I mean, with the movies that we've seen like Nope and people worried about the government talking about UFOs now, people are wondering, is this maybe some sort of cloaked UFO that's just hovering around looking like a cloud?
You're going to see things that you've never seen in this country before.
The Trump administration releasing a batch of never-seen-before UFO files as the president promised.
And they said they saw things that you wouldn't believe.
He said, Tim, they're real. And that's the last thing he said to me. That'll be the title of my book, I guess.
The Trump administration has released a massive collection of declassified UFO and UAP files, describing alleged extraterrestrial encounters and unexplained aerial phenomena observed by government personnel across the United States. The release is part of a new transparency initiative called the PURSUE Program, short for Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Encounters. Officials say the database includes mission reports, photographs, videos, witness testimony, and intelligence documents tied to unresolved UFO investigations spanning decades. According to the White House, the files are now publicly accessible with no clearance required, marking what officials describe as one of the largest disclosures of unexplained aerial incidents in U.S. history. Among the most startling cases is a 2023 report involving 7 separate federal officers who indefinitely described seeing strange glowing objects across Western America over a 2-day period. Witnesses reportedly observed orbs launching other orbs, a massive stationary glowing sphere, and a transparent object described as a resembling a translucent kite. Special agents also reported orange-colored orbs repeatedly releasing smaller red orbs before fading in and out of view. Officials say the release required coordination across dozens of agencies and the review of millions of classified records, many dating back decades and existing only in paper archives. The government emphasized that all materials released involved unresolved cases, meaning investigators could not determine the true nature or the origin of this phenomena. Reporting JSM Talk News.
Guess what? Today the Department of War dropped another UAP file release, 41 new files, videos, documents, images, and some FBI renderings. This is the 5th official release, and most of it, as far as the video goes, does have that familiar look: grainy military surveillance footage, infrared targeting displays, and heavily redacted reports, of course. But I will say that there are a couple of interesting standouts. For example, 6 of the videos appear to cover the same 2021 encounter. This happened over the Gulf of Oman. It says it's recorded from an AC-130 gunship during a live fire exercise. And dig this, according to the accompanying intelligence report, personnel saw roughly 25 UAP instances described as cold orbs. They were flying in formations, maneuvering aggressively, and possibly even reacting as the aircraft fired its main cannons. There's also a 2025 military aircraft video from the Middle East, plus a 2026 report involving 2 slow-moving black-hot infrared anomalies that were seen by U.S. government special agent. The FBI interview files and the artist renderings, they might be the least convincing part visually, but don't confuse a rendering with evidence. There is value in the underlying witness statements, the source documents, sensor data, that's all being made public. So this is another official batch of unresolved material, and the government says more files will be coming. Which file from this release 5 do you want me to break down and do a deeper analysis on?
What do you guys think about the president? But I saw Biden, you know what I'm saying? So this been going on for a while. I saw Biden shaking hands with one, and then I saw Trump walking with one, and but we're gonna go on deeper into this and see who all got up with these aliens over the years. There's probably some more going on that we don't know about, you know?
Much of what you're about to see has never been public before. The Pentagon now releasing another batch of its so-called UFO files after they were declassified by President Trump. And this morning, we got an exclusive first look.
This morning, the GMA exclusive, more than 50 videos and other documents detailing strange objects in the sky, many of which the military can't explain, released in the second batch of the Pentagon's so-called UFO files. Inside never-before-seen video like this from 2024, the Coast Guard picking up this object as it flew near a plane over the southeastern U.S., and this taken by the U.S. military over Syria in 2021, following an unidentified object before it suddenly speeds off. The service member who submitted the video labeling it instant acceleration. Others seen flying in apparent formation. All part of over 200 files released so far detailing what the military officially calls unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, better known as UFOs, long an object of public fascination.
They want to find out about the UFOs. and anything having to do with UFO or related material.
The files made public on order of President Trump, who earlier this month touted complete and maximum transparency, leaving it up to the public to, quote, decide for themselves what the hell is going on. In the newly released records, this video from 2020, taken in an undisclosed area under U.S. Central Command, appearing to show a sphere flying over a population center, the pilot getting a closer look before it eventually flew higher off into the sky. And this account from a senior U.S. intelligence officer just last year, describing seeing two large orbs flare up alongside their helicopter while on a mission, saying they were orange with a white or yellow center and emitted light in all directions. Fighter jets then scrambled to identify the objects, but couldn't, the officer recounts, then writing, the same orbs we had encountered were now chasing the fighters. We were virtually speechless after these observations.
After multiple investigations, the government has found no evidence any of these incidents are of an extraterrestrial nature, but military officials admit many remain unresolved and cannot be explained. And inside these files, there were some videos that certainly were not UFOs, like one of the government shooting down what was believed to be a balloon over Lake Huron in 2023. But a lot to go through here, guys.
We're now releasing a lot of things having to do with space. You know, it's people are very interested in it. It actually became the #1 topic. We're releasing a lot of information having to do with terrestrial things, and people are totally fascinated by it. It's amazing. I wasn't sure if they would enjoy it.
Now to the Pentagon releasing its latest trove of files related to UFOs. The dozens of videos, images, and reports, some as recent as last year. Here's Perry Russum.
Tonight, the eerie new videos released by the Pentagon showing more of what the government calls unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. 40 new files today, including 19 videos. One UAP described by a pilot as having flight characteristics unlike anything they had seen in their 28 years of military service. 2 encounters allegedly happening just last year. One video shows a UAP in the clouds, at times partially hidden. The camera follows it for just over 2 minutes. A second video shows what looks like a 6-pointed star bobbing in the skies above the Yellow Sea in Asia. Cameras zooming in on this UAP from 2020. A partially redacted Pentagon report says it was about 12 to 15 feet tall. In 2015, the U.S. military capturing a UAP speeding past their camera. 3 new pictures released, including this one taken on board the Columbia Space Shuttle in 1996, an object apparently floating in orbit around Earth. It's still not clear what any of these objects are. Rachel, so far the Pentagon has released more than 300 UAP files under a directive by President Trump. The Pentagon says more files are coming, Rachel.
Yeah, lots of interest in this. Okay, Perry, thank you.
Much of what you're about to see has never been public before. The Pentagon now releasing another batch of its so-called UFO files after they were declassified.
Let's talk about what you say that you know of. You say that you know of 4 types of aliens. One of those are, quote, grays, and you've claimed that, as you just did, we've just recovered deceased bodies. Can you describe what they look like?
There's a minimum of 4 that we know of. And I've seen the evidence and I've seen the records. They variously are described as the grays, like what everybody saw in Close Encounters of the Third Kind at the end of that movie in the final scene. And then there's the Nordics, which are very tall statured, Caucasian-looking individuals. And then there's the beings that resemble or look like insects, like a praying mantis type insect, but they're not an insect, or they could be, but we don't know. But it's just that people, when they're not familiar with something that presents an ontological shock to them, they'll try to overlay what their imagination helps them understand what it is they're seeing that's so strange and otherworldly, or outworldly, I should say. So there's these species that would resemble insectoids or insect. And then there's the reptilians for the same case, in that their morphology, body structure looks like a reptilian. And they may not be reptilian.
Sometimes they kill copyright reasons. Those trash
The U.S. government just officially announced that they're releasing classified files on aliens and UFOs. So this literally just happened. The U.S. government announced that they are now directing those and UAPs. Okay. Multiple different agencies. The actual wording for this entire aerial phenomena and unidentified flying objects. Okay. Here's why this is obviously a massive deal right now, is because military pilots have reported hundreds of unexplained objects moving at speeds that don't match any known human technology. Just last year alone, a congressman released military footage of a missile hitting a glowing orb that was just flying in the sky, and it literally bounced off of it. Dude, if there is nothing to hide, why are the files classified in the first place? You need to make sure that you go ahead and add me right now, because whenever these files start dropping, I'm about to show you them immediately.
Guess what? Today, the Department of War dropped another UAP.
Here's something to rattle your brain. Could life exist beyond Earth? The Pentagon has released 4 eyewitness videos of never-before-seen UFOs. The mystery objects look like glowing orbs and were filmed in the skies above northeastern America. It's the 3rd batch of files released by the US government.
Tonight, I can share new and exclusive reporting about a cluster of suspected directed energy attacks that are blamed for crippling brain and neurological injuries affecting spies, diplomats, military personnel, and civilians. It's commonly known as Havana syndrome. Through my reporting, I've identified at least 3 incidents beginning in 2020 involving U.S. government personnel in Northern Virginia. In some cases, the individuals were investigating directed energy weapon technology, and at least 1 incident occurred at a U.S. government facility. The CIA and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, that's the nation's top intelligence official, did not respond to my questions about how the risk to U.S. personnel is being addressed. Joining us now is Dr. James Giordano, Professor Emeritus of Neurology at Georgetown University Medical Center. He has also served as a forensic neuroscientist on Havana syndrome cases. Dr. Giordano, let's begin with a simple explanation for people so they can understand how these directed energy attacks impact the individuals and their brains.
Sure, absolutely. Well, if we're looking at directed energy, the issue is that essentially there's two types that have been used. One was a form of sonic energy, and the other appears to be a laser-induced microwave, a very rapidly pulsed microwave. In the former situation with the ultrasound, what's essentially happening is the compression and expansion of the ultrasonic wave causes almost a bubbling effect within fluid media within the brain, within the head.
So it's like a concussive effect within the brain.
It is. It's almost as if what's happening is that they're getting some form of decompression sickness. The symptoms are very similar. So what's happening is these are causing bubbling and rippling, which is then disrupting not only the balance organs and hearing organs, but may also then transmit into the brain to cause something like a mini stroke.
So let me take that a step further. With the initial assault, is that where the injury and the damage ends, or is it progressive?
It is progressive. As we mentioned, there are two types, the second type being microwaves, and the microwaves really will disrupt the network effects of the brain. Think, if you will, of putting something like a cell phone very briefly into a microwave for a second. It may seem that it's working the same, but it will never actually be the same. And in fact, its function may decrement with time. This is the same thing we're seeing with these patients. There'll be an initial set of effects that tend to worsen as various aspects of the brain and nervous system become far more disrupted, deteriorated over time.
I want to talk to you about some new reporting. I've been able to identify at least 3 incidents in the Northern Virginia area in the last 5 years. I think there are in fact more, where the individuals report an initial attack with a directed energy weapon, and then there's a pause, and then there's sort of a staccato of attacks, sort of a rapid pace of attacks that follow. What does that tell you about the nature of these weapons and the damage that's being done?
Well, this seems to be more of the microwave type or something along the electromagnetic frequency with it. The first attack is called a priming attack. It may get ranging, it may get certain characteristics to be able to affect the individual. And then what you get is secondary attacks, or what are sometimes called sequence or finishing attacks. And what that may then incur is an amplification of the initial effect. So what you're sort of doing is you're stirring the pot, and then you're really letting it boil.
Now that is crazy, man. Do you see what they're doing, man? They're using all types of brainwave machines, man, and all this on our people, man, on our military people, man. You know what I'm saying? And they got them in hospitals and they testing on them, bro. So just imagine that, man. You know what I'm saying? That could be some of your family members that's in that military that went over there, man. And we don't know what they doing to them folks, and they telling us they okay, but you know what I'm saying? They doing operations on them and with microwave, and these folks come back, man, and then they commit all types of crimes and kill and all that. You know what I'm saying? Because they psychologically fucked up. You know what I'm saying? They messed up in the head, man. But hey, this Fearen Fear Files, man. You know, we gonna keep on bringing you content. We gonna keep on uncovering all this alleged microwave stuff going on with the brains and these aliens that the government is sitting down at the round table with and eating with. You know what I'm saying? And making deals to give us up with. You know what I'm saying? So this is Fearen Fear Files, man. Once again, I'm signing out. Peace.